The Pittsburgh Steelers have lost 5 of their last 7 games and are now merely tied atop the AFC North, a position that feels far more fragile than it appears on paper. What once looked like a season of promise has quickly devolved into a prolonged stretch of inconsistency, frustration, and mounting concerns about the team's identity. Everything seemed to fall apart in the second half of their most recent loss against the Buffalo Bills, a game in which the Steelers collapsed in nearly every conceivable phase. The unraveling was not sudden but rather the culmination of multiple weeks in which issues that had been lingering beneath the surface finally exploded into full view. Despite going against 2 backup offensive tackles, Pittsburgh's defense showed virtually no ability to stop the run, and the unit finished with just a 24% pressure rate on Josh Allen, an unacceptable output for a defense that entered the season with expectations of being not only a strength but a defining force. The final score does not accurately portray how poorly the black and gold played in a game with major implications for the playoff race and the sense of direction within the organization. Head coach Mike Tomlin opened his post-game press conference by stating the obvious, but even the obvious needed to be acknowledged, if only so that the gravity of the situation could fully sink in. His tone was serious, even solemn, as he knew full well that the foundation of his football team had been shaken. "Not a lot needs to be said," Tomlin remarked. "That's an awful performance by us, but it's us. We didn't do a lot well tonight, obviously. We didn't possess the ball or maintain ball security on offense. We were highly penalized. We allowed those guys to run the ball, didn't play 60 minutes of action, and didn't play complementary football." The bluntness was striking, but it was also an admission that the team's problems extend far beyond a single bad night. The 2 takeaways in the first half were the only reason Pittsburgh held a lead at halftime, and even that felt more like a temporary reprieve than a sign of stability. The lone touchdown scored by the Steelers came on a short field following an interception, but the team immediately gave it back in the second half. With a 7-3 lead, Aaron Rodgers was stripped on a sack, and the fumble was returned for a touchdown. On the next drive, Mason Rudolph entered the game and promptly threw an interception, which the Bills converted into yet another score. In a matter of minutes, the Steelers lost the lead, lost momentum, and lost control of the game. The Steelers' offense produced a paltry 162 total yards, an almost unfathomable number for an NFL team in 2025. For comparison, the Bills racked up 249 yards on the ground alone, meaning Buffalo's rushing attack outgained Pittsburgh's entire offense by a massive margin. Nobody on the offensive side of the ball seemed to be in sync. Routes were mistimed, receivers struggled to gain separation, and even when someone finally popped open, it didn't always translate into a completion. Protection broke down repeatedly, play design felt stale and predictable, and the unit's rhythm vanished entirely. This was, without exaggeration, one of the most lethargic and ineffective offensive performances of the season for the black and gold. Defensively, the problems were equally glaring. For yet another week, the Steelers surrendered 249 rushing yards, an indictment of their gap discipline, physicality, and game planning. It does not matter whether the opponent is elite or merely competent, giving up that kind of production on the ground signals deep-rooted issues. Cameron Hayward was visibly frustrated throughout the contest, gesturing at teammates, trying to rally the group, trying to set the tone, but even his intensity failed to spark meaningful improvement. Nobody else on the defensive front managed to take over, and tackling remained inconsistent at best. Blocking schemes that should have been disrupted instead unfolded smoothly for Buffalo, who exploited mismatches and soft edges repeatedly. The team has not built or maintained a good reputation this season. Tomlin has yet to provide a convincing explanation for why this supposedly historic defense, one that had been touted throughout the offseason, has transformed into one of the least reliable units in the league. The offense, meanwhile, looked strong for a brief stretch earlier in the year, but that flash of competence has faded. The group has not scored more than 21 points in any game since their 6-takeaway explosion in Week 9. Since then, nothing has worked consistently on either side of the ball. Schematically, philosophically, and fundamentally, the Steelers are struggling to find answers. Ultimately, the problems start with the coaching. Multiple defensive players have been vocal about what they want changed schematically, particularly in terms of alignment, pressure packages, and coverage usage, yet Tomlin has been hesitant to adjust. His fingerprints on the defense have been a subject of discussion for years, especially regarding his affinity for conservative situational calls, but the criticism has intensified dramatically this season. On offense, the issues are eerily reminiscent of the problems from 2020, ignoring the middle of the field, predictable route concepts, and an unhealthy reliance on short, horizontal throws. Opponents have clearly figured out the tendencies, and adjustments have been rare and ineffective. Until the leadership group, the coaches, coordinators, and evaluators at the top, acknowledges that their way of doing things is not producing results, seasons like this will continue to materialize. Fans see the same patterns emerging year after year, with mid-season collapses, late-year droughts, and glaring problems that linger unaddressed. The players sense it too, as seen in post-game interviews over the last several weeks. The frustration is growing, not only because the team is losing but because it feels as though they are losing for the same reasons repeatedly. Facing the Baltimore Ravens on the road is an enormous challenge under normal circumstances, but under the current conditions, it borders on daunting. If the Steelers lose that game, it will mark the continuation of a troubling trend, a 3-game losing streak in every single season since 2018. Most of those losing streaks have come near the end of the year when playoff positioning is on the line. A statistic like that would put many coaches around the league firmly on the hot seat, or even cost them their job. Yet the Steelers, who famously value stability, have maintained confidence in Tomlin despite the mounting evidence that changes may be necessary. The larger question now is not just whether the Steelers can salvage this season, but whether the organizational philosophy itself is outdated. Can this team thrive with its current offensive and defensive identities? Can a franchise built on tradition adapt quickly enough to survive in a league where innovation, adaptability, and aggressiveness often determine success? When a team repeatedly falls short in similar ways, the issue ceases to be coincidence and begins to reflect a deeper systemic problem. Pittsburgh's unwillingness to evolve may be catching up to them, and unless bold action is taken, from scheme adjustments to staff reevaluations, the cycle is likely to repeat. For now, the Steelers remain tied atop the AFC North, but the standings are deceptive. The margin for error is disappearing rapidly, and the issues plaguing the team are not minor flaws, they are fundamental breakdowns. The locker room is frustrated, the fan base is exhausted, and the coaching staff is under more scrutiny than at any point in recent memory. The next few weeks will not only define the 2025 season but may determine the future direction of the franchise. Whether the organization confronts these realities or continues to lean on its traditional belief in internal stability will shape everything that comes next. Thanks for watching and see you soon.